This week I had a dream. I dreamt I was coming home from a night out in Manchester, something that never happens in real life. And I was on Manchester Piccadilly Station, platform 14, when a crocodile crept up on me and clamped its jaws on my right leg. Now, it wasn't a huge crocodile, it was 5 or 6 feet long, but it was big enough to get the whole of its mouth clamped in this vice-like grip around my leg and was holding on tight in this grip. Now, somehow I managed to sort of prise the jaws of this crocodile open and get away, and I hobbled away to the customer service desk to sort of queue up and then politely complain that there was a crocodile on platform 14 and it's probably something someone should deal with. So it didn't turn out too badly. But have you ever had dreams or nightmares when you're constricted in some way? When you're trying to move, something's got you, and you're trying to get free, but you can't. It's a paralysing and a claustrophobic feeling. You try to move, you're trying to get away, you're trying to sort of shake yourself awake, but you can't. Part of this relates to the biology of what happens to us when we sleep. When you sleep, your body actually paralyses itself. The muscles can't move, so we can stop us hurting ourselves by moving too much in our sleep. And I think we can sense this restriction sometimes in our dreams. And sometimes it's possible to wake up and to still be paralysed. This can happen rarely to some people. It's called sleep paralysis. And so you wake up, you're conscious, but you can't move, you can't speak, you're completely paralysed. This might be a very scary thing to happen to someone, but it's harmless, and usually after a few seconds the mechanism clicks in and you are able to move, but it's a very scary experience of time. It is scary to feel restricted, to be denied the freedom to move. We don't start off feeling like this. Newborn babies like to be swaddled, right? They like to be tied up tight. For a baby, too much freedom is scary, and being tightly restricted offers security and comfort. But as we grow and develop, we need more freedom. As we mature, we seek greater and greater freedom, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. That's the process of growing. And as we become teenagers, adolescents, then what we really seek is freedom. We're asserting our freedom, our individuality, and anything that restricts us is terribly annoying. Restrictions of family and school and of life seem very oppressive to us in that time of adolescence, because we're asserting our freedom and we're seeking that freedom for ourselves as an individual. And that's when the conflict gets in, isn't it, with teenagers, because there's getting some nods around, because there's that assertion of trying to find the balance of that freedom. And for some of this is part of our religious story as well, our religious life story. People who've got a life story like mine have begun to feel restricted and oppressed by some forms of religion that we grew up with. The Anglicanism that I grew up with felt too hampering, too claustrophobic for me. And many of us here in this Unitarian community have come from other faith communities that may have felt in one way or another too restrictive, too dogmatic for us. We could not believe the creeds, and we struggled with the rules, and we wanted to find that freedom. For me, and for people like me, the Unitarian faith offers this kind of liberating freedom. Unitarians are free from creeds, free from dogma, free from authoritarian church structures or hierarchies, free from the orthodoxy of one book or one tradition or one interpretation, free from beliefs that we can't in ourselves honestly hold. My old minister, when I used to live in Boston in the US, Stephen Kendrick, that we've heard from this morning, he says this about Unitarians: we do not limit the truth of God even to the word God, but live in openness and belief in human freedom and dignity. And that's great. But we cannot leave it there. We cannot stay there. We cannot stay in the place where Unitarianism is just freedom from dogma. Because there are those of us who've had a different faith journey to me. What about those of us who grew up Unitarians, who never felt the oppression of a religious dogma from another faith community, but have grown up in the Unitarian fold? What reason do they have to remain? What reason do we give our children to continue in a Unitarian path when they've grown up within Unitarianism? And what about those of us who have come from a completely non-religious background, without any religion in our background, in our childhood, in our growing up, which is increasingly becoming the case in the younger generation, the generation emerging? Religion is just not on their radar. It's not something they've rebelled against, because it's not something that's ever been part of their lives. It's not something they've been involved in. It's just an irrelevance. It's just something that is there somewhere in society, but it doesn't touch on who they are. And if we say to those people, Unitarianism is about religious freedom, then they'll say, well, I've got that. I have religious freedom staying at home on a Sunday morning. If what you're selling is freedom, then I have enough. I'm quite happy. Is there nothing we can say to people who've come from a completely non-religious background? You could argue our culture is overflowing with freedom. Being free to do whatever you want, to be whatever you want. Is this a radical message? Or is it in fact the mainstream message of our culture? As I've been thinking about this theme this week, I keep having songs running through my head that talk about freedom, and there's lots of them. There's the Rolling Stones. I'm free to do what I want any old time. George Michael's song, Freedom. There's something deep inside of me, there's someone else I gotta be. And my favourite band, Queen, I want to break free, I want to break free. As a culture, we are that parrot from the story, crying, freedom, freedom, I want to be free. But there's another song lyric that's come to mind to me this week, which is a Robbie Williams song lyric from the song You Know Me. And he says, I've been doing what I like, when I like, how I like. It's joyless. I've been doing what I like, when I like, how I like. It's joyless. Is this kind of freedom joyless?